All right, we're definitely live, and right now I'm just going to give it a couple minutes, everybody, and let um, the Facebook do what it does by sending out invitations. But I'd like to definitely thank everybody so far who are now watching this. Um, to thank all of you for getting on. Definitely have an awesome interview tonight with a awesome brother by the name of Dana Stevens out of Chicago. So everybody's jumping on right now, and I see all of you. What's going on? Shalom to everybody. How you doing? Grace to all of you, and I'm going to give it a couple minutes because I see the numbers are jumping pretty high. So, um, Pastor Dana, if you definitely would like to say hello to everybody, they can hear you.
All right. Good evening, everybody. And again, thank you, Evangelist Majors, for opportunity for me to come live with you and talk about some necessary and much needed stuff.
Amen, amen. All right, definitely. Everybody, is everybody on? If you can hear us clear, just type in the word clear in the message feed so you can make sure. I want to make sure that everyone can hear Pastor Dana as well as myself. Um, oh, some of y'all say it's kind of dark. Oh well, I'm doing the interview. I had to do it from um, my car because my son is woke. Okay, he's up and awake and he's if you guys know when I do a lot of my Bible study, he pops in and interrupts things. So I don't want to interrupt this interview. All right, so that's why it's kind of dark where I'm at right now. I'm at my home, but I'm in my garage in the car. All right, so just want to make sure everybody's asking why is it kind of dark when they normally know that I'm probably in my office or studio somewhere like that. But I definitely want to make sure this interview goes very well and everyone can hear. All right. Definitely thank all of you. Thank all of you. All right. Thank all of you for sharing. Thank all of you for sharing. Bless all of you. Bless all of you, man. Grace to everybody. Shalom to everybody. Peace and many blessings to all, everyone who's getting on. Okay, we're going to definitely start in a couple minutes. It is now 8:08 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here in Atlanta. It's 7 p.m. on Central Time, and it's about 5 o'clock on the West Coast. So I'm going to give it about a good maybe 3 minutes before we go ahead and get started with our interview and go from. I just want to give everybody the opportunity to go ahead and continue to share it, continue to get on, continue to do whatever you have to do. Some people may be rushing, some people may, whatever you want to do. I always give you that a lot of time to get on. All right, so we can definitely go from there. If you're just not joining the page, thank all of you. Thank you for getting on here. Thank you. I definitely want to tell everyone. Thank all of you for your time. Very well, very well. I thank all of you for your time. If you invited friends, I always throw the disclaimer out. Whatever friend you invite, just make sure that the friend that you invite is um, respectable because my block game is very well. I used to play basketball. I was a three-sport athlete, and my block game is very well. So I transitioned my block game over to social media, and I will block you. All right, so I just want to make sure that everybody understood, and the person that you invite, just make sure they're adults and responsible. If you don't agree with something, that's fine. All right, but let's be mature adults, agree to disagree. And if you have any questions, you can inbox me or inbox Pastor Dana personally, and we can go ahead and something that may be not clear to you, and we can clear it up. All right. But definitely, I did thank all of you for getting on. Pastor Danny, do you have anything you want to share before we get the interview started, or say anything to anybody, welcome anybody, or anything of that nature?
I know. I just want to say thank you to you for this opportunity. I'm excited about what I can learn from you, and especially our passions for God's people, especially you as God's chosen people, and getting the word out there so we can clear up some of our brothers and sisters that are walking around not knowing who their true identity is. And so anyway, I'm excited about tonight and just to see where God takes it.
Okay. All right, definitely, brothers and sisters, we're going to go ahead and get started with the interview. Again, I'd like to thank Pastor Dana for taking our time and coming on. I'll definitely be having a lot of interviews with a lot of different brothers and sisters who are definitely preaching the truth of the gospel and a whole lot of different things, a lot of different testimonies and things like that. So this will be something that'll be added to 2017 along with a lot of teachings that I'll be doing. But I definitely want to be able to use this platform to so that somebody's testimony may be able to reach somebody or some information that people may not know about can reach someone to help someone educationally. We want to be educated, but we also want to have a level of spiritual education, a level of education as far as book knowledge, but also be able to come together in these days, in these last days, in these trying times, as people who accepted the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and be able to come together and be able to make sure that we bring the glory to Him, but reach people at the same time. So, with that said, definitely, brothers, so we're going to go ahead and get started. And before I get started, I want to, um, Pastor, I want to ask you. I know we had a conversation last week by phone, and you had an awesome testimony, and I want to talk about that. I want the people. I want to be very transparent. I want the people to know the situation because you deal with a lot of inner city, youth and teenager kids and young adults in Chicago. Um, let's be transparent about the incident
Yes.
when I think you were downtown when this walk first started for you.
Yeah. I just to give you a brief way history. I grew up in southern Minnesota. I grew up in a town of about 4,000 people out in the country. Um, the only minorities we had in the town of 4,000 at the time was like two Hispanic families. I had two classmates. That was it. That was the extent of our cultural diversity, except for foreign exchange students that would come and spend a year at the school their senior year, and most of those, if not all of them, came from the European countries. I went to school in Iowa for 2 years. I graduated from there, and then I transferred to Moody Bible Institute in Chicago, and I made the move in January of 1994. Is the first time I stepped foot in Chicago, and that was January. Well, as a student at Moody, we were all required to attend and find a church home while a student, just to be rooted in some church. And since most of us at Moody were going to move into the ministry field, we were required to do so. So in March, two of the guys on my floor who were urban majors. Now, I was a youth ministry major, but my goal and my intent after leaving Moody was to become a camp director out in the wilderness. I knew how to play the guitar. I knew how to sing Kumbaya around the campfire, and that was my goal. That was what my career it was at the time. So in March of 1994, these two guys invited me to a church called Rock of Our Salvation Church on the west side of Chicago. I didn't know anything different between the west side, north side, east side, south. It was Chicago. So as we're riding the subway, every stop we began to take, I noticed that more white folk got off the train and more black people remained and got on, until we finally got to our stop, and myself and the two guys from Moody, which were white, were almost the only white people on the train. So at that point, I knew, due to what I was taught, that I was getting off the train and walking in a community that was known as an inner city ghetto. I was taught that is not a place for anybody to be, especially if you were white. I was taught that it was filled with lazy people. I have a cousin that she would refer to you as porch monkeys. And a porch monkey is somebody, such as yourself, that sat on the porch and waited for welfare checks to come. That's the type of mindset I was brought up under. My parents parents would never say much about that, but we never defended you. We never looked to find out the facts of what we were being taught about you, whether they were honestly true or not. So, we weren't anybody that was helping to remove the stereotypes. So as I was walking, I'm like, oh my gosh. And the ironic thing, which was God, the pastor talked about stereotypes and how the destruction of stereotypes doesn't happen after you do something to an individual or speak to the individual in a negative way. But stereotypes are destructive the moment that we allow them to take root in our mindset and then, believe it. So I was always sensitive to the Mexicans in my hometown because I know they were tolerated, and they weren't feared because there was only a few of them. And since the whites had the upper hand, we tolerated them, and sometimes we enjoyed Jesse, who was in my grade, because he was good at football. So as we got out of church and we're walking back, it had snowed during the service. So the two friends of mine were walking single file in front of me, and I was trailing them. About a block up, I saw 5 black guys, young men, probably in their early 20s, coming our direction. Well, right away, my mind was like, oh my gosh, they're a gang. Oh my gosh, what are they going to do? What am I going to do? Well, I didn't have no cell phones back at that time, so I couldn't call 911. I had thought about going across the street, but then I'm a firm believer that when God's word goes out to us, our hearts, we determine whether our hearts are going to receive that word as good soil, or if we're going to, allow the enemy to take it away right away, or, if we're going to let it kind of take root, but not totally, that parable of the sower of the seed. And so I started talking to myself like, okay, Dana, here you go. Now you have an opportunity to put into practice what you were just taught, that right now your mind is saying these 5 young black men are gang members. You want to walk on the other side of the street. What are they going to do to you? But would you believe that or feel that if they were white? I had to say to myself, no, I would not. So why should I do that to these guys? Because I was in an inner city area one time when I was probably a 8th grader. We were traveling down to Tulsa, Oklahoma, and my mother took a wrong turn while we were going through Omaha, Nebraska, and at one moment we found ourselves lost in a black community. And I remember my father telling us to lock the doors, us kids to kind of scoot down in the car, and was very upset with my mother that she could be so stupid to get lost in an area like that where he said we may not come out alive. So that was the only time I ever had a situation. So the guys were coming my way, and they picked up these ice chunks, and I'm thinking, okay, they're going to have a snowball fight. That's what we do in Minnesota when it snows.
Right.
Well, when they got to my first 2 friends, who again now, one was a senior and one was a sophomore, and they had spent all their years at Moody at this church because they were declaring urban majors, and they were saying that God had called them to the inner city. So I followed what they did as these 5 young black men came by them. They said, hi, what's up, and both greeted each other. Well, when they came to me, I followed suit with the 2 friends of mine from Moody, and I said, hi, what's up? Hi. Well, they beat me. They beat me pretty good. After they had beat me, and those ice chunks were not for a snowball fight, but they were for my face and the back of my neck. The last young man gave me a kick, and then he said, welcome to racism.
Wow.
And those 5 guys ran off. It was at that time that the 2 friends that were with me turned around and saw me in the snow with a bloody lip, busted lip, black eyes, bloody nose. And it was that moment that God really spoke to my heart. And what he did in those next weeks and months after that incident was helped me not see the actions of what these young men did to me, but to feel and take and begin to understand the pain behind the actions of why they beat me up. And God was like, you represent to them society in this country.
Right.
And because the society in this country has degraded them, devalued them, discriminated against them, their anger was released on me.
Right.
But God said, I'm using that as a way to literally, I call it, that was my Saul moment.
Right.
I wasn't on that sidewalk or in that neighborhood to necessarily destroy anybody.
Right.
But my two friends did not know that I was getting beat up. God had to keep them from hearing what was going on. And I know they didn't hear what was going on because there's no way they would have been walking the way they were walking if they heard me getting beat up. Naturally, they would have either started walking up quicker or you would have seen something. But when they finally said, welcome to racism, they turned around and they were like, oh my God. I believe God blocked their ears because that moment was between me and God.
Right.
And that was the turning point in my life, which now, you know what, well, I'm going into year 24. I mean, that was 23 years. But that was the turning point of my calling. And so within this next month and all of that, I left going to the wilderness. I chuckled. I said, well, God called me from the wilderness to the concrete jungle.
Right.
Those two friends of mine, one of them lasted in the inner city, I want to say for 1 or 2 years, and the other one never even went into the inner city.
Wow.
I had no intention at that time of being in the inner city, and now, 23 plus years later, I'm here.
Right.
That's where my journey began. And through these last 23 years, that's when God has begun to show me literally the injustice of our system that has been set up to keep you as God's, chosen people down.
Right.
I did not realize even that you were all chosen.
Right.
That came about shortly after the video, my initial video that I put out in August. The Lord just strongly put on my heart to put this video out. I meant nothing more from it than to literally compare the government with Pharaoh and what was said in that video. But from that video, I have met some incredible people, to include you, Evangelist Majors, that now God has really all these questions and all of these uncertainties that I had, about why are you as my black brothers and sisters so hated?
Right.
Why is the system set up so much to hate you the way it does? When this final revelation came into my heart, it helps me understand everything. And when I began to walk into the inner city, the Lord told me, He said, you will be a Joshua, and you will lead my people into the promised land. When He gave me that promise almost 23 years ago, I initially thought that I was going to be just used by Him to lead people from the streets and the young people that I'm working with, which has been 99.99% black.
Right.
I thought that promised land was just, leading those young men and women into a relationship with Jesus Christ.
Right.
But I never had absolute peace about that interpretation in my heart. Now, I really believe it's leading with people like you, Evangelist Majors, God's chosen people, into your promised land, free from the hands of the modern day Pharaoh, which is our government, which is the United States of America society.
Right.
And it scares me a little bit. Sometimes when I say that, I feel like I'm arrogant. That who do I think I am?
Right.
But I never called me to this. God did.
Right.
So I'm going to do whatever He asks me to do.
Absolutely.
And that's been in a nutshell. That's where my journey began, and that's where my journey has been. And like I said, it's been now over 23 years.
Okay. Let me ask you this. Because I know, a lot of times, um, when we talk about, the scriptures even talks about the spiritual Egypt and that we're in, and at the same time, we know that that so much is not so much of just the people, but there's a system that's been set up within the country from the foundation of the country that was always
Yeah.
that was against um, so-called, African Americans, as we're labeled. But at the same
Yeah.
time, we know that even within this country, there have always been people that have been a part of the movement or the part of um, helping empower. Um, the people. We're the only people on the face of the planet that don't know our original nationality or don't really know our original language,
Absolutely.
don't know our customs, don't
Right.
know our heritage,
Right.
don't know anything. We're the only
Yeah.
people on the face of the planet.
Yep.
So I
Yep.
what I want is I want to also just put out that it's not so much that we're saying that it's every white person, and that's against us. I don't believe that, but I know the system that was set up from the beginning were people who had slaves. But there
Yeah.
were always been people, even within that time of slavery, that was a part of, you know, helping for a liberation as being used to help assist. The Lord has always done that. He's done that even when it come down to Joshua, when you go dealing with Jericho. The woman who helped
Yes.
those who would despise,
Yeah.
she wasn't an Israelite, but yet she was from
Right.
another nation.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the Lord would always
Yeah.
use someone from another nation to help His people. It's always been that way. And I know that there are people. Let me ask you this before we get started. Even more, since the video, and I know um, the video went viral and whatnot. How has it been when you make this statement? Because a lot of people are going to want to know, what do you mean God's people, God's chosen people? When you hear that term, there's a resistance that comes with that. Um, Let me ask you this: how has it been as far as those who are close to you? Have they received, you since you came out and said, with the video about Egypt and stuff like that? How has the reception been?
Now, when you say people close to me, are you saying my family, and those that I grew up with, or are you saying my for lack of term, my black brothers and sisters that I've been working with?
As far as we'll just deal with one at a time. Let's say your family, your blood family.
My
How
blood
have they
family.
responded?
Well, even before I stated that, most of them have walked away from me,
Mm,
except for my mother and my father,
okay.
my brother. After, even before I put the video out and I started taking more of a stand, but especially after I put the video out, I have an auntie that blocks me from every phone number she has. She blocked me from Facebook. She said that I'm full of evil in my heart. Most of my classmates that begin to look at some of what I do, when I say classmates, I'm saying kind of from high school. They all say that I'm crazy, that I'm stern, that I just need to speak peace. And I really haven't gotten a backing from any of my white folk except for one of my cousins who's married to a black man,
Mhm.
that supports me 100%. I have a cousin here in Chicagoland that has seen my work and has been with me, and she supports me 100%. But other than that, my support is pretty much not there. And even the family that may not speak against me does not support me, though. I have an uncle down in Tulsa, Oklahoma, that was a youth pastor that was my role model. And the only thing he told me and my mom through a email after this video came out was, well, I'm going to pray that Dana's honoring God because I fear that he is stirring up trouble and he's spreading division instead of peace and unity. And that is my problem even with a lot of the white folk is I think, yes, there are more than just Dana out there. But I'm going to be honest with you. There's not a lot. And the reason why I say what I say is where are our white evangelical leaders that don't even have to embrace that you're God's chosen, but where are they to stand up against the crimes and the killings that have been done? When a majority of some of these white evangelical leaders have a large black following.
Wow.
So the white folks, and I had a discussion with this friend of mine, Judy Stewart, who is from Atlanta, who's a mighty woman, and just how God connected her and I together is another testimony. But her cousin is Carol Robertson, which was one of the young ladies that was killed in Birmingham, Alabama, when the church was bombed. And she questioned me and said, well, then she says, but I got some white in my family. I've got some white people. They're not like the Trump. They're not like that. And I said, well, Judy, they might not be. But I said it took all of those people when they went behind closed doors, when nobody knew who they were voting for except for God. And the problem is that a lot of them, if they didn't vote for Trump, they definitely did not stand up against him.
Right.
Or they haven't stood up against the stuff that's going on. I got several friends from Moody that are still in the inner city, and some of them email me and tell me to stop division. And I question them, and I'm like, you've been in the inner city, for 5-10 years. How do you dare tell me to stop when you know what I'm sharing? And that has caused me to even break my heart more, because even some of the people that I thought were on our side, when it comes down to it, they make comments like, well, Dana, these guys do need to respect the police officers. Well, Dana, sometimes they do need to keep their mouth shut. Well, Dana, I'm trying to empower them so they can get out of the inner city and go someplace where it's better. Do you understand what you're saying?
Wow.
How can you? So when it gets to the chosen part, I haven't had any positive responses except for maybe 3 or 4 white people that I've been with. Otherwise, I've gotten negative, or I've gotten nothing. I have 2-3 churches back in southern Minnesota that all stopped supporting me because they told me when I used to encourage and say I'm grateful for President Obama, they literally told me, you're not spreading the gospel, you're spreading politics and President Obama. Why don't you become one of his gurus? And they stopped supporting me, stopped sending me money. Now with my black brothers and sisters, I think it's such a shock that they follow me, they receive it, but I don't know if they're at a point to be able to believe it.
Wow.
Because again, how can you believe that you're God's chosen people and that you're dearly loved by God and that you're his original and all these incredible things that you and I are saying, and yet this God that says not only does he love you, but you're his original, his chosen, allow you to live in such a society or even in the world that is against you on every level. So I think the only reason why my voice has gone out in maybe a bigger fashion than even some of my fellow black brothers and sisters, such as even you evangelists that are saying these things, and I think it's only because I'm seen as coming from the side of the enemy. Mm-hmm. Of course, you are going to tell your other slaves when you're in the pit that we're treated wrong and this isn't right. What do they expect you to say?
Right.
And they want to believe it, but you're all in the pit together. I think the reason why my voice has been able to make an impact, that video viral right now. If you look at the people that have cut my video out and called me a police officer and called me other things, I'm following about 5 or 6 of them.
Right.
And if I add them all up, it's about 45 million views right now.
Okay.
And I think why I'm getting that is because people are saying this man isn't one of us, but yet he's speaking what we're hoping and what we believe in our hearts. But if we're all saying it and we're all slaves of, of course we're going to have to try to hold on to some type of hope with each other. But when somebody from outside of the group declares that you have been mistreated, you are being mistreated, society is absolutely on every level set up to hold you down and destroy you, it finally, I believe, makes your group say, we knew this is true.
Right.
And now we finally have somebody from the enemy acknowledging that we're not crazy, but we are going through total hardship on every side.
Right.
So I think what's going to really bring those that I'm with to grasp it is when I can begin to unfold it biblically.
Right.
To show them that this is where it's coming from, biblically and historically, from even evidence outside of the Bible.
Right.
For those of those that are leery about following the Bible or following me, even because I am a Christian, to prove that this is true, even from the evidence outside of the Word of God.
Right. Mhm. Okay. Now let's definitely because it's definitely some great points and great things that you're saying right now. And I think the truth has to be spoken. I definitely think that the problem that with everything that is quote unquote new throughout history, when it's new or if it's been suppressed and somehow begins to rise, there's always resistance. Throughout history, no matter what it is, if it's something that new that challenges the system and challenges the old way of things, it's always met with resistance. And it takes, to be honest with you, sometimes it takes those to sacrifice, if at a lack of, if that's the term we can use, to make sure that truth does go forward. Sometimes it takes sacrificing something. Christ, it took him having to sacrifice to bring redemption. It's always met with resistance. It doesn't mean that it's wrong. It just means that it does not agree with the populace in which they want to function, in which they want to go. Because what happens is the populace have been reigning and ruling for a long time, for centuries. And now when something comes at them from a different angle and they can't stop it, or they feel as though we got to try to bottle it up right now, then it's going to be met with resistance. That's why there's a level of that's why the Lord has to pour out his spirit, according to Joel, upon the young, because the young, one thing about the young, they don't care. This generation, they don't run up in a liquor store, they'll kick your door in, they'll pull a gun out on you. They don't care. They're not afraid about dying. They're not afraid of any of that. Now imagine once the spirit of the Most High God gets poured on them, that same fearless young brother and sister that don't care about dying, now they don't care about dying for the Lord. And now that's when it's going to become a problem. Absolutely. That's what it is.
And not to interrupt you, but I am here.
Okay.
I just wanted to say this. You said something that also is how I wanted to put it when it comes to the whites. How many whites have sacrificed their reputation to stand up for the injustices that have been happening to you as blacks?
Right.
That's what I'm talking about? Where are these evangelical leaders that have sacrificed some of their reputation or their reputation with the white folk or with their popularity to come out and say, I don't care what you think of me, but this is injustice that's happening to our black brothers and sisters in this country, and it needs to stop. When they can't do that, then then I have issues with them, because then you're not trying to change the problem, you're ignoring it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But now back to your young people, and that's why I want to put a call, and that's why I want to do some Jericho marches throughout the United States this summer, is because these guys out in the streets, they're not our enemies. They are waiting to know that God is real, and when God begins to pour out His Spirit through us, and because of us into their lives, these young men and women are going to become warriors, just like Saul did when he became a Paul.
Absolutely.
And nothing's going to hold them back. These guys are out in the street from wee hours in the morning till wee hours at night here in Chicago, when it can be 100 degrees during the summer, or when it's right now 25 to 30 below zero. They're out there running their game.
Mhm.
They're not lazy.
Right.
They're far from lazy. The only thing is that they just need to be transformed in what game they're running for.
Oh man, that's it right there.
And that's us believers, us people. Even if you're, even though they're not believers, we're the ones that have the power of life and death in our tongue to go out there and to speak life into them. And not just, and Evangelist Majors, please forgive me, because I don't want to seem like I'm judgmental, but I have issues with the black churches that one weekend of summer, or maybe even once a month during the summer, they all put on their, so-and-so church T-shirts. They walk out there with their Bibles, and they go on the street corners, and they call it evangelism, and they're telling these guys, you need to give your life to Christ. You need to come to church. You need to stop selling drugs. You need to do this. But yet all the other weeks, they drive around those street corners because they're afraid of them.
Wow. Wow.
That is, and I'm not judging, I'm just saying it's not working.
Right.
I live in a community, in an all-black community, where there, on some of my on some of my blocks, we have 3 to 4 to 5 storefront churches. Well, I was told that wherever the light of God is, darkness either converts or runs.
Right.
So there shouldn't be any crime happening in my community with the number of churches located here.
Absolutely.
So if there's crime, it's not the fault of the kids. It's not the power of the devil. It's the inability, or it's the lack of effectiveness or love from the believers.
Right. Absolutely.
We don't go. I used to go out on those streets during the summer, and I walked almost every single night. I would walk and silently pray until all of a sudden, week after week, these guys would be like, man, what's up with you? Who are you?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just walking. Well, what you walking for? Well, I'll tell you. I'm a youth pastor, and I've been walking around on this street, and I've actually been praying for you because I'm tired of seeing you die.
Right.
Do you know the type of friends I have now? Those guys would sell drugs, and before they would sell drugs, they'd say, hey, Rev, I got to do what I got to do, but I need you to move over there. I didn't tell them, oh, you need to stop. I did it one time. I told Q-Tip one time, Q-Tip, you need to stop selling drugs.
Right.
He grabbed me by the shirt, and he pushed me up against the wall, and he says, okay. He says, I'll stop selling drugs, Rev, but I want you to follow me. Took me to his house, and he said, look, his mom was strung out. There was a little sister, a little brother running around, no food in the refrigerator, no food in the freezer, crying of hunger. And he says, when you feed my younger brother and sister, and you keep my lights on, and you keep my gas on, and you keep my family house, I'll stop selling. Until that time, you have nothing to say to me. And at that point, God told me, you shut your mouth, and you speak life into these guys. Don't you judge them by what they're doing.
Right.
You pray for protection until they're converted over or until society changes to a place where these guys can get a job.
That's right.
Some of them have a small little charge on their record and they're doomed. It doesn't matter how hard they try. Now, God is God, don't get me wrong. But I'm just speaking from reality in the lives of these young men.
Right. Absolutely.
So that's part of my transforming our neighborhoods. We can't keep calling in Pharaoh. Pharaoh don't care about our people.
He don't. He definitely don't.
And we're calling in more slave masters to man the streets. So they can take out their whips, they can take out their guns, and they can harass them, shoot them, beat them up. I mean, come on, what we see on TV has been happening for generations.
Absolutely.
With the shootings. It's just now that everybody has a camera and a video in their hand, it's being exposed.
That's it.
It ain't nothing new.
Absolutely. Definitely. And you're definitely right. I mean, at the end of the day, because we see this all the time. We have, they have these, conferences and stuff. Okay, how are we going to reach the inner city? How are we going to reach the inner city? And they go to these conferences, and it's the same thing. Well, excuse me, we got to tell them this and tell them that. And listen, man, coming from the streets, listen, you telling me that I got to stop selling drugs when I can't get a job. Now I'm supposed to went through a system that is called the Department of Corrections, which is supposed to be getting a second chance, which makes me worse than I actually was, because now you put roadblocks in my way, preventing me from getting a job. So now now the system is set up for me to go right back. If I don't have any opportunity or no one to support me, now I got to end up going back and doing something that I really don't want to do. But I got a 3-year-old daughter who's crying and screaming, and her mother is on the system. She can't get it. She can't get ahead. So what am I supposed to do? We have to get to the place where we stop telling people, okay, stop selling drugs. They know they're not supposed to sell drugs. But the question is this: when the last time have you took somebody and say, hey man, listen, stop selling drugs and get in the car with me. Let me take you to get a job. And see, that's the thing. The way the streets operate, it's like, listen, I'll go if you show. See, they got this mentality like, listen, I don't want to hear all this talk. Everybody done talk to me. Show me some results. Do you know someone that'll hire me? If someone will hire me, I'll put the drugs down. If you don't have anyone to hire me, you telling me to stop selling drugs, then that's not going to do anything for these dudes in the inner city. They are actually feeling hopeless.
That's the word. My pastor, I've been over to Africa several times, Nigeria and South Africa, Johannesburg, but especially Nigeria. And where my pastor in Port Harcourt, Nigeria, built his church, it was basically kind of swampy land, and it was very poor. The poor there, not all Africa is like that. I just want to make that disclaimer.
Right.
They're just as modern as we are.
Right.
But in this area, they were poor, and they literally lived in makeshift homes that were made out of cardboard and wood slats and stuff like that. They were poor. No running water, no toilets, no nothing. And so my pastor came over here, and he wanted to come to visit me here on the west side. And so he got in the car, and I drove him down 16th Street where I had done a lot of walking, and it's known as the blood path because back shortly after Martin Luther King was killed, a man cut a woman's head off and then carried it down this 16th Street by her hair.
Wow.
And so it's called the blood path, and it used to be the main shopping district, beautiful shopping district here on the west side. When Martin Luther lived in Chicago for a while, the building that I owned for a short time that I was going to transform into a youth center called Studio 2911, which the city came in and tore it down and took it away from me. He used to stop there and get the weekend newspaper. So anyway, as I would walk around and get to know all those people, I mean, they would look out for me. I guess I just kind of lost my train of thought. I'm sorry about that.
Right, that's fine.
With those guys out on the street. when Pastor. So then I took Pastor down that street, and all of a sudden he just said, "My God, Pastor Dina, my God, get me out of here." And so I drove out a little bit, and I stopped, and I pulled it over, and I had to ask him. I said, "Pastor, what's wrong?" He says, "I can't take this." I said, "Take what?" He said, "I can't take this." He said, "The spirit of gloom and doom and stuff is so strong." He says, "I don't know how you can live underneath this. You have to be called by God to live underneath this." He says, "I can't take it."
Wow.
I said, "Pastor," I said, "but I don't understand." I said, now, hear me out. Most of our poor people still have cell phones. They live in an apartment with running water and heat and electricity.
Right.
And I'm just comparing them to the poor that you had. No running water, no electricity, living on sand floors with these little huts. He said, "Yes, Pastor." But he said, "My people have hope. Yours don't."
Wow.
He says, "When you don't have hope, there will always be a ceiling on your expectations."
Wow.
He says, "My people have hope that their God may step in or rain down on them tomorrow." But when you don't have hope because you believe you're a group of cursed, unwanted, unvaluable people, not only in the society where you live, but also by the God that you serve, you're at the pit of the pit of the pit. So he always told me this many years ago. He said, "So Dana," he says, and this is where God started teaching me this. He says, "You must teach my people that people of color, God used strategically to advance the kingdom." Strategically. You got to show them that they're not cursed, but they're chosen. And that's where I didn't know the depth of it, but that's where I started to change the way that I would treat people. I mean, even more so, is to understand that when you're caught in a pit of hopelessness, even if we get somebody a job, you're still caught underneath that hopelessness.
Yeah.
So my whole goal has been transformed to speak that life into my brothers and sisters. But now that God has even revealed a greater level of who you are, I want to educate myself through you and through others to be able to not even just speak it, but to even prove it to them.
Right. That's right. That's absolutely right. And that is I mean, just to hear the conversation in what you're telling us with you and your pastor from Ghana. It's crazy because we know that over there, and a lot, not like you say, not all of Africa is impoverished. Johannesburg and Lagos, places like that. They're more modern. Like L.A. and New York, but there's some areas that are just like Haiti, like just really bad.
Absolutely.
And the thing about it is, the projects in America is like Beverly Hills compared to some of these places in Africa.
Yeah.
And for them to have hope and places in America that has projects that have running water and everything else, they are hopeless. But people who have nothing have hope. That is a big major problem.
Yep. And so who's going to bring hope into our communities? Calling on the Pharaoh, having conferences, or all of us when we walk out our streets, or walk out of our homes, and I'm not saying that everybody that's listening to us lives in an inner city ghetto.
Right.
But you can find paths to go through it, to begin to, these guys mostly hang out on the same street corners unless something tragic happens. Unless there is some change in gang territory. You're pretty much going to find the same guys in the same area. And I just wonder if we all began to stop even once a week and drop something into their hands. When it's cold, we give them some coffee, or we give them some food, donuts, or when it's hot outside, some nice iced tea, whatever it might be. To speak that hope. I believe that God is going to honor that, and it's going to transform these communities.
Right.
And it's not even about the community. It's about the hearts and the souls of these young people that don't believe they have any value. And so when they don't believe they have value, guess what? They're not going to see anybody around them as valuable.
Right.
So when you're not valuable and nobody else around you is valuable, you don't have a problem with taking somebody's life because, oh, well.
Mhm.
But when they begin to understand that they're valuable, that they're chosen, that they're gifted, I've got artwork all around in my house that when people will come, and if it's not from Africa, they'll say, oh my God, look at this. Where did you get this? I said, oh, that was inmate Skip. What do you mean inmate Skip? I said, that was one of the inmates that I got to know, and he drew me that picture.
Right.
What? There's so much talent behind those bars. The problem is, and this is where I have problems with my white folk.
Right.
And I got into a really heated discussion with this white church that was going behind Cook County Jail once a week, on a Sunday to give them a worship service.
Right.
I said, where are you before these guys get locked up? See, now this again, I'm going back to why I really am sometimes come across as real negative about my own people.
Mhm.
Because you say you have the heart for men in the inner city, and you'll come every Sunday while these men are locked up in behind bars. But where the hell are you
Right.
before these guys get locked up?
Mhm. That's true.
Where are you out on the streets? Where are you coming into our neighborhoods and helping them get a job or helping them to be a man because you say they need to learn how to be a man? Where are you before they get locked up? Well, see, you won't come to them before they're locked up because you're actually afraid of them because you think they're a bunch of animals.
Right.
But at least these animals are corralled behind jail cells and you're protected by security guards, so now you can come in and tell them all about the love of Jesus Christ.
Hmm.
But you're too afraid to come and tell that to them before they're locked up because deep down inside your heart, you're afraid of them because you think they're all a bunch of wild animals.
Right.
You see, that's what white people think. I'm just going to be honest. White people believe this. Us white folk are good by nature, but we got a couple numbskulls. And you'll see them. Those that walk into a school and blow away some people, that's a numbskull. That's not your normal white person. But on the other hand, you blacks are mostly all numbskulls, but a few of you have become good people.
Wow.
So when you have that as your basis of belief, you act and you think accordingly. You blacks are all bad by nature, but a few of you are escaped that because you made choices to come out of that.
Wow.
But by nature, that's who you are as people. You're monkeys, you're apes, you're wild, you're sexual predators. I mean, the list can go on and on and on.
Wow. Wow.
So when that is the thread of belief, that's why when a black man turns and looks at a cop, they shoot you because they're coming from that mindset of this is an animal, uncontrollable, shoot them. But when it's a white person, well, they're not an animal. This guy might be a little crazy, but let's just wait to see what he does.
Wow. I mean, the evidence is there. I mean, we see it on television and whatnot, and
absolutely.
And so that's wow.
Absolutely. And again, you might be thinking, wow, he's really picking on the white folk. Yes, there's some good people out there. Don't get me wrong, But you know how I know which ones are good? When they read my posts, they don't rebel against it.
Right.
Because they're humble enough to say, well, Dana called out all white people, but I'm not a part of that, so he's not talking to me.
Right. Wow.
But those that say, that's really wrong, you're including me in this, I said, I never put your name there. Why did you stop by? Because because if you stopped by and read something on somebody's Facebook page that absolutely did not include you, you would either laugh at it to how false it is, or you would say, well, maybe that's true for other people, not me, but you would move on. But if you have to stop to refute it, then there's something inside of you. Because see, this is what God showed me too. I'm not coming into the inner city for my black brothers and sisters in the inner city to automatically respect me. See, that's another thing that white folk have to get rid of. We think you should automatically respect us, but it's okay for me to take time to trust you.
Wow.
Because it's that mindset again. You're an animal. You come from crazy Africa. You lived in huts. You didn't wear normal clothing. You hunted by spears. We're the civilized people. We're the ones that taught you civilization. We're the ones that taught you. That's why it's so crazy now that white folk are shaking their heads saying, oh my God, you mean all these different things that we use was invented by a black man? You mean a lot of Elvis Presley's music that was so incredible, awesome to us white folk was actually by a black man?
Wow.
That's why it was so unique and so different. We thought Elvis Presley was just a good old king, that he was anointed by God. But most of his music was written by blacks. And the reason why blacks weren't able to display it is because at that time they weren't allowed to be on the radio and the TV. So to at least get their music out there, they gave it to white folk.
Wow. Woo, man. I mean, this is definitely, I think it's great to be transparent. I mean, that's the problem. That's why we can't move on past a lot of things, is because there's a lot of issues that the church know there's a lot of issues that they don't want to talk about. It's a lot of things that they don't want to talk about and throw on the table, but then they walk away and leave and go home, and they have those very things that they don't want to talk about. They have issues with them. And in order for us to be able to get past it, we can't continue to just shove it, this way, or flush it down the toilet and all this old kind of stuff. We definitely have to have dialogue and conversation. Just like there are bad white people, there's bad, black people. People do all kind of. The devil can come in any color, any shape, any size. But at the same time, we know that that there's a system. That's why people, when I sit around and I have conversation with people, and a lot of people may not agree with me when it comes down to voting and all this kind of stuff, I still think it's just a part of the system that also that was started in the beginning, that was a part with all the laws as well. So my thing is, I believe, okay, you can, I'm not saying don't vote and all this kind of stuff. All I'm saying is just know that this is a part of a system that can can be corrupt, because every system that is designed by man has a form of being able to be flawed or some form of corruption. But at the same time, man, let's kind of shift a little bit. I want to talk about. Let me see. Are you good on time? It's 8:00 your time, 9:00 my time.
I'm fine. This is my passion. Okay. This is no, I'm fine.
Okay. Let's definitely deal with the conversation of just youth empowerment, because I really believe that things really start with our young people. I remember growing up in Jacksonville, Florida, and there wasn't an issue. Most of the police officers came from the very communities or the hood, whatever you want to call it, or whatever community. They were the policemen. They came, they got jobs with the police department, or they went to the military. A lot of them got jobs. And there was a relationship between a lot of black officers that was in the community with a lot of the youth. Well, now you have a lot of police officers that aren't a part of the inner city. A lot of them haven't been in the inner city. There's some, but there's a big disconnection. There's a big disconnection between the police as well as the youth. So now the youth look at the police as not being trusted. The youth look at even me. I'm not even a police officer, and they look at me not being trusted. Now you have to really prove yourself to the youth, and they're still watching you with a side eye because if you do something wrong, they think, okay, well, you had an agenda or you had something against me or something of that nature. So I think we have to start with our young people first. Not to say we forget about the elders or forget about the young adults or those who are in their 30s. All I'm saying is we have to get to a place to where we reach our youth. We have to instill into them now because everybody else is doing it. We have to instill into them at a young age that I'm not against you because at the same time when I grew up, people in my community, I didn't go over someone else's house and cut the fool and act like somebody crazy because my parents automatically gave people within my community because everybody knew each other. You automatically had a permission. They pretty much might as well sign a permission slip to tear my behind up if I came over their house and act like somebody without some sense. So now we have in the community, we have people who live in the community for 20 years and they don't even know their next door neighbor. 20 years. Don't even know them. Don't talk to them. Don't know them. Don't do anything. So I think we have a major issue with the community that the village, we don't have a village anymore. Now we've adopted the mentality of I'm going to get mine, you better get yours, versus the village mentality of we all raise the children within the community because that's how the village was.
Yeah, and I think it's just because, and I don't know, but even just my own 20 some years living here, I have seen that our inner cities are falling deeper into the bucket. And a lot of people want to make their judgments, well, people need to do this and people need to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. Well, what happens when society took away your bootstraps? Number
Right.
one. Number two, how do we judge the crabs in the bucket for the way that they're acting with each other when we first must ask who put the crabs in the bucket because crabs were never meant to live in a bucket. So I feel like our inner cities are going down more and more because even the resources are becoming slimmer and slimmer. And so even the friendly neighbors now are like, well, I got to take care of my own. I live in the inner city here, and at one point, my water bill used to be about $30 every 3 months. All of a sudden, for one summer, I got a $1,400 water bill, an $800 and some dollar water bill, and almost like $1,000 bill. And I called them up and I said, something's wrong here. And they're like, oh no, you must have a busted pipe. I said, my house is almost brand new. I said, I don't have a busted pipe. Well, we're sorry. If I didn't pay that, the city will take my house away.
Wow.
All of a sudden, I talked to my next door neighbor, and they come over. Gail came over, and she's like, Brother Dana, she said, my water bill is like $1,000. Do you know that how many of my neighbors, we got houses from the city because the lots were vacant.
Right.
So they were giving these lots to people that wanted to come in to better the neighborhood, to do the neighborhood.
Right.
Well, then after now the prices were going up, they were doing all these things to take away our property. Some of my families on our street lost their homes because they couldn't pay their water bill.
Wow.
And so I think sometimes, we're not even lending hands with each other anymore is because everybody's struggling for the resources just to stay alive. My neighbors got their electricity cut out because they had to pay their water bill. So I ran extension cords from my house to their house.
Wow.
For several months to help them out. But I'm saying I thank God that I was able to do that because I have a mom and dad that have worked hard and put money away, and they have lent me money. They
Right.
have helped me pay for my bills. Not everybody has that. So I'm not better than them. I just have some parents that were able to help me out over these 8 years.
Absolutely.
So, I think that's part of it is the resources. There's scripture in the Bible in Proverbs that says that the wealth of the poor, or the fields of the poor, are swiped or taken away by the injustice
Wow.
of society.
Right.
And when you come into this inner city, it's filled with resources of talent, of gifts and abilities. But the injustice of our nation has taken it away. So now that we're just trying to survive, unfortunately, our kids, we're not out there helping, and we started to adopt the mindset of the slave master. That when we see our next door young lady that's got 6 kids, we start doing what white society has done. Well, what the heck's wrong with her? She should have no kids. She's nothing but a lazy. She a hoe. She this. She that. Instead of looking at her to say, well, wait a minute now. This young lady has never had a father in her life, not because dad was lazy, but because dad was put in jail. Nobody's taught her value of herself. Nobody has taught her this. So she's only doing, something that comes by nature.
Right.
And sometimes these people are having kids, so at least somebody loves them, can love.
Absolutely.
And so I'm trying to challenge myself. One day I always got up and I prayed, and there's a back alley. And in this back alley, they used to sell crack cocaine. And once a month, almost once a month, the guys would come out and hand it out for free. Well, that's a great way of getting, your people to buy your stuff, is to hand it out to them for free until they get hooked on it, and then they become a paying customer. And one day I always saw this lady that I know her parents, but she prostituted herself to get, to fulfill her drug habit and all that. And she would walk by almost every morning, and when she'd walk by, I'd be like, oh my gosh, there she goes again. Why doesn't she stay at home? And then finally one day, God just spoke to my heart and said, Dana, there's a reason why I let this lady walk by your window every day, so that you can at least one person is praying over her life instead of condemning it.
Right.
And that's the mindset we have to have with our young people. A lot of our young people were in the alley playing around, and my one neighbor was always like, I'm tired of them being there. They make noise. They're a nuisance. And I said, Stephanie, wait a minute. I said, they're not a nuisance. I said, where else can they go? So I put up a basketball rim for them. Man, and I told Stephanie, these young people will be the best watchdogs that you'll ever have, because if you build respect for them, they will protect you and your property to death. Well, she had it taken down. She ended up having to get metal doors that would go over her windows, because her windows were getting busted out by bricks and rocks from the very same kids that when I would be in my backyard and they would be playing ball, and if the ball got close to my car, oh, be careful, that's going to go by Mr. Stevens' car, and we're not going to ruin his car. That's what I'm saying, Stephanie, you have adopted the mindset of the slave master. I said, if you would just reach out to those kids and allow them to play basketball, and even give them the basketball to play, and even bring them some water on a hot Sunday, I said, those kids will respect you and take care of you. My next door neighbor said some bad things about me, and those kids heard it. Within one day, those kids broke out every single one of those man's windows. I finally stopped those kids, and I said, come guys, I said, I really appreciate the respect you have for me, but I said, I don't want you to fight back this way. I want you to fight for me this way. I want you to prove to people in this neighborhood you're not who they think you are.
Right.
I said, I want you to go and apologize to this man for what you did. And I said, we're going to get some money. I said, these kids listen to me, because I show them love, I speak life into them, and I value them.
Absolutely.
I don't have any problems.
Wow. Okay, Pastor Dana, before we close here, I definitely want to talk about another topic, our final topic on tonight. I definitely want to talk about the what is your viewpoint on America as far as um, the destruction of the system? Um, what is your viewpoint on that?
Okay, break that down to me a little bit more.
Okay. I know we there's this. How do you feel? Do you feel the system in which America has as far as um, the mentality, the way it treats um, people or God's chosen people or the children of Israel and
Uh-huh.
whatnot. Um, do you feel that this system is going to come to an end? Um,
Absolutely. Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
that's what I'm
I think.
saying. Go ahead
Yeah. Yeah.
and break it down for me.
I really do. One thing, and I that I learned and is that the first documented slave in Jamestown took place, and there's a little bit of discrepancy, but took place around 1619 to 1620. And so when you add 400 years to that, you get to 2020,
Okay.
2019. So just with my biblical belief in 400 years as it was for the Hebrews in the slavery of the Egyptians, 400 years.
Okay.
Now, I also believe, a lot of people told me, oh, Trump is not going to get voted in. And I said, yes, he is. I really believed he was. Not only because I felt God told me that, but I also know the hearts of white people, as I shared a little bit later. When they're left being able to vote when nobody knows how they're voting, their true hearts are going to come out. And see, white folk don't mind some minorities, but the reason why we've allowed Trump to degrade women, to degrade mentally challenged, handicapped individuals, is because out of all the evils, those are less than the fear white people have in blacks becoming more powerful, taking over, taking charge, and then the Muslims. So we will allow Trump to do what he did and to say what he says as long as he gets rid of our biggest fear, which is to maintain white power.
Right.
Now, Trump, I believe, has to be in office for the fall
Absolutely.
of the
Okay.
white system.
Okay.
Because if and even though white folk will always still try to blame it on President Obama probably 30 years from now, if President Obama or Hillary Clinton as a female was in office, white male America, who controls it, would blame the fall on one of those two people.
Right.
But God is allowing Trump, who Trump to me is the heart of white America, especially when we first founded this nation.
Right.
White folk, even though that don't stand up to say stop this racism, some of them do feel bad because they've had some friends or they've met some people that are black, so they kind of think of that person they met, and so they have some empathy or some sadness in some of the injustices that take place.
Right.
But Trump to me is really the manifestation of the spirit that founded America. That it was for white men to succeed and white men, period. Not women, not minorities, not children, not handicapped, not anybody outside of a strong white man.
Right.
So now that he is in power, and even though our other white presidents had racial issues and through their policies and lack of policies and lack of them standing up for what's right, Trump speaks it and is just deliberate about it. And so I do believe that God has allowed Pharaoh to be put into position so that when the white system comes tumbling down over these next years, there will be nobody to blame except for them. And I do believe the system is going to change. I cannot believe that God is a God that is going to continue to allow this to happen. He has really spoken to my heart prophetically that it's going to happen. I know that there has been other prophets out there, some unnamed prophets that believe that President Obama is going to be coming back in office. I also do believe that. Why I believe that is Trump is stirring up war on the outside and on the inside. And when he comes into office and continues to run his mouth, my mother cannot even say his name, and she becomes infuriated with who he is. But when he's stirring up with Russia and Korea and all these other people, and even the European countries, if you kind of follow through on some of them, are disgusted with this man.
Right.
That he's going to stir up war from the outside, and his racial and all of the things that he's doing is going to already have stirred up racial issues and civil unrest on the inside.
Absolutely.
And I don't care what. There's only one man that they're going to be able to immediately call to power that people are going to listen to both on the outside and on the inside, and that is President Obama. He has relationships with these countries that when he goes back into office, they're going to join him. They're going to defend. And those of us that are going to be revolting and those that are going to be coming up against, when President Obama says, I need you guys to stop, they're going to listen for the most part.
Right.
So I do believe that the system is coming down. And I do believe that President Obama is going to be back in office, because who else is the United States going to be able to put there that people are going to at least halfway listen to?
Absolutely.
And that's President Obama.
I got you. All right, Pastor Dana, man, I definitely thank you for coming on, man. I thank you for the interview and whatnot, man. I just definitely want to encourage you to keep doing what you're doing, keep speaking truth. Keep reaching out to the people as well, man. And like I said, we'll definitely be talking. I look forward to coming to Chicago and whatnot.
Yes.
And I look forward to just having more dialogue, getting into the scriptures, being able to get into history with you, breaking it down so you can be able to deliver it, the information to the people as well when breaking down the scriptures and the future prophecies of the children of Israel. So we're going to definitely get into it from there. And definitely go over it from there, man. I definitely want to thank you once again for coming on.
Well, thank you. And I read through Deuteronomy chapter 28, and I've already ordered the book you told me to. So
From Babylon to Timbuktu.
From Babylon to Timbuktu by Dr. Rudolph Windsor. So
that's right.
I'm with you on that.
Okay. All right, man.
So, hey, bless you. Thank you so much, and I look forward to our next talks.
Definitely. All right, Pastor Daniel, thank you.
Blessings to you.
Blessings to you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Hey, listen, guys, man, I'd like to thank everybody for getting on once again, man. We're definitely going to be doing a lot of more of these interviews on a lot of different topics and subjects and stuff like that, man. We're definitely going to be opening up the hearts and minds of the people and whatnot. Again, I'd like to thank all of you for your time, for coming on, always coming on to my Bible study lessons, as well as these new interviews and stuff like that I'll be dealing with. We're going to be dealing with a lot of topics coming up. The Bible studies will come back. I'll definitely put it out there and let you guys know when the date is. I also have I've thrown out there some of the Bible study topics of dealing with the King James situation, with the King James being a white homosexual male, when we know that there's evidence out there and proof out there, such as Cambridge University, that show he was of Negroid descent. So we'll definitely be dealing with that. We're going to also deal with this whole Council of Nicaea thing and the making up of Christ, that they made him up. I'm going to be dealing with that. A lot of other things, man. I'm talking about all the way down to dealing with the Ray Hagen allegory doctrine that he's teaching, all kind of other stuff, man. We're going to be getting at it. We're going to be dealing with all this stuff. As you know, you've been following me. So definitely, man, I definitely want to speak life and encouragement into you. I'd like to thank all of you for getting on. Listen, I have to say this before I get off. If I don't say this, then I'm not a man of God and I don't love you with the love of Christ. Listen, we got to get better, man. We got to get better. Okay? Listen, I'm talking to you right now, brothers and sisters. We got to get better. Why are we on Facebook doing an interview arguing and bickering? And it just makes no sense to me. When listen, I pray for you guys every single night. I pray for you guys all the time. And I'm trying to find out, when are we going to mature in the Lord where we can simply have a conversation without somebody or something coming up in the conversation that has nothing to do with the conversation, okay? Or it's a seed that's planted to cause some form of bickering. Listen, if we're talking about a particular topic also, we're not going to talk about other topics. That makes no sense, okay? We have to mature. How can we come together, sit at a round table, and talk about waking up our people, and then somebody come in and start talking about hamburgers and french fries? That makes no sense. We're not going to do that. Okay. When are we going to mature as people of God? We say that we leaders. We say that we woke. We in this truth. We should be teaching other people, but yet we can't do something simple as listen to an interview, have a conversation, enjoy the truth or enjoy whatever's being spoken without somebody or something coming up with somebody arguing, bickering about something. Don't you know that Hasatan loves that? Hasatan loves that. He loves that. Now you can't focus on what's being said because you're too busy trying to prove a point. It makes no sense. This is the reason why that we can't advance. The Lord can't pour into us, can't elevate us to the next level because we're still on milk in dealing with each other. We gotta mature, man. We have to mature. These are elementary things, man. These are elementary things. And I'm not going to come into the interview and start disrupting the interview just to talk to y'all about something that you should know better in. You say you're in the truth, let's mature like we're in the truth. If we have an issue or a disagreement about something, then let us go and inbox one another or wait till it's over to do that. Don't come in talking about all kind of stuff that have nothing to do with the conversation. That makes us, I'm not going to be teaching you about nationality and who you are as a people and then start talking about computers. That makes no sense because you didn't come here to hear about computers. You came to hear about truth. That's it. So that's all I want to say. I'm just telling you, man, in order for us to elevate, we have to deal with some of these things that we've been programmed to do. And we've been programmed to speak out and all that kind of stuff on stuff that have nothing to do with it. And it's causing a stirring of a problem because you don't stay focused on what's at hand. If the Lord wants you to march, you can't turn around and march north. He wants you to march north and then you turn around and you tell me, I'm going to go east. Come on, you can't do that. And what's going to happen is, and I keep telling you this, what's going to happen is the Lord going to move your behind right out the way and He's going to raise up somebody else to speak this truth. I keep telling y'all that. This is the third time that it's coming out, that I'm telling you this. If you don't get your act together and mature in the Lord, you are not going to be used in the capacity that He created you for. You're going to be limited. When it's time to go out here and go to war, you stand at the house. I'm not taking you when it's time to go to war. Because why? Because if everybody's shooting north and all of a sudden you're going to stop shooting north and start looking south and everybody going to get gunned down. I'm not going to do that. When it's time to go out and witness, the Lord may say, listen, somebody may come along and start arguing. It's not the time to argue with that person. Stay focused because the enemy will be allowed, and I said allowed,